Welcome back to Adversity to Ascension, a podcast about taking the adversities in your life and turning them into meaning and success. I'm your host, Dr. Sandra Cox, and I'm joined today by David Keck, who is now a friend of mine whom I met on TikTok and has his own podcast called The Process of Healing. And so welcome, David. We're so happy to have you here. You have an amazing and poignant story, and I know that many people are going to be fascinated to hear about your life and what you're doing now. So thanks for being here.
Oh my goodness. Thanks for having me. I want to go ahead and just give a shout out to you. I'm a little starstruck. When I came across you on TikTok, I just obviously fell right in love. And the connection that we've made, I'm so honored to be here and to get to share my story with you and have a little bit of your time.
It's going to be so much fun and enlightening. So tell us about you. I know a little bit about your story. I've also heard more about it on your podcast, but of course I want to give you the opportunity. The most striking part of your story for me, well, there are a lot of striking parts, but just the beginning of your life. Yeah, let's start there.
Yeah, so I'm 43 years old. I stutter on that because I'm not used to telling my real age, but I decided I'll start being honest.
Just don't ask me to tell my real age.
Right. But I am an open gay man in the South, and we're making strides, but we've got a long way to go. Mm-hmm. When I was 34 years old, so 10 years ago, I was a victim of a brutal hate crime, and I found some blessings along the way that I didn't realize how much of a blessing in life I had with my family and the support that was already there, and just how lucky I am to have such a loving, amazing, supportive family, and how that kept me from going. That could have been a detrimental ending.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you have that. The beginnings of your life were interesting. You said your parents were 14 when they had you. Is that correct?
Yeah, my parents were 14 when they had me, so obviously I was not planned, and this was back 43 years ago, and so what Baptist people do is if you accidentally get pregnant, you hurry and get married, and mm-hmm. So they got married, and they had my brother at 16, and it was children raising children,
Right,
and
right.
So one of a big pivotal point in my life at a very young age was, my mom made the decision to leave my brother and I on a doorstep, and she left and was gone out of our lives for several years. Now, I will say, after, a few years and some growing up and soul searching, my mother is back in my life and is number one mama. She's amazing. I have an amazing father, but there became some abandonment issues with that, Yes. So there were things that, fast forwarding to my big T, there were things in my younger life that was traumatizing to me that I did not know that I was still battling.
Absolutely. Did you have a memory of what happened and the years in between being dropped on that doorstep and then your mother coming back into your life? Do you have a memory of those years?
I don't remember being left, but I do remember as time progressed, I remember not having a mom like everyone else did. And I remember having certain family members, never my father, but certain family members putting my mother down and almost trying to put the thought and idea in my brother and my head that, she did not love us and that she was a horrible person when she was a kid.
She was just a child. Yes. Did she leave you with relatives?
So she did leave us on my great aunt's doorstep.
Okay.
And they played a big factor into my life and my upbringing, and some religious trauma that I have
Mm-hmm.
from them, and where their beliefs were on my parents having children at that age, on then them getting divorced, and then later on discovering that I'm gay.
Yes, yes. So the Southern Baptist Church,
Yeah,
that's a just those words. That's a recipe for religious trauma for sure.
yeah, yeah. That's a
Yeah,
whole other podcast on its own, right?
it is. It is absolutely. So you were raised by them for a number of years, and then your mom came back into your life. Did she get you back to herself, or was she sort of sharing custody? What happened with your family arrangement?
So we stayed some with my great aunt and uncle. They lived just a few doors down from my grandmother, that was my father's mom, and my dad.
Mhm.
So they were our primary caregivers. But my aunt and uncle did play a big role, just living a couple of doors down. So when my mom did return, she came back home. Her and my father, didn't get back together, but my dad, had no hatred toward her, and so she came back in and lived with us for a while, and then as she got established back here in Tennessee, she ended up getting her own place and eventually remarrying.
Okay, good, good.
Yeah, so my father had custody of my brother and I.
Right, right. So talk about the years leading up to the trauma that you experienced. I mean, the adult trauma, the hate crime. What was going on in your life during those years? And you said you came out as a gay man. That must have been difficult for you. How did that unfold?
You know, I don't think any coming out story is easy, but mine really wasn't that hard. I will say, ironically enough, that I think having parents at such a young age where they were not accepted and frowned upon so much, I think it helped open up their mind to diversities, around them.
Sure. Yeah.
And so I do think that played in our favor. I never heard my parents talk bad about anybody, any kind of sexual orientation, race, any of that. We were just
Mhm.
taught that as long as you're good people, you're good,
That's great. Yeah.
But I struggled personally with myself because I did have a relationship with God, and I did have a relationship in church. And this was, the 90s when, obviously HIV, AIDS was a big thing in the 80s. And
Right.
then the church wanted to preach on, if you're gay, you get AIDS and die, which is absolutely not what happens. and
Right.
so there was this fear mongering that was put into me, and this battle where I just personally, because of my relationship with God, tried to fight being gay.
Mm.
I will say my parents, they actually lived in the same subdivision, both remarried, but it was nothing to come home from school and my mother and stepmother being on the couch having a glass of wine, watching HGTV and shopping, So,
Right.
that was really nice. But I came home one day, and my mom wanted to talk to me, and
Mm.
she had called my dad over, and they told me that they believed that I was gay, and that they wanted me to accept that. And they said some
Oh.
really cool things. They said, we want to love all of you, and in order to do that, we want to be a part of all of you.
Oh, that is that just warms my heart. That's not a typical story for a gay person in the South and raised in the Southern Baptist Church. That's a beautiful story. That's wonderful.
Yeah, absolutely. And then when, I was coming out, like my little brothers, they didn't care. It
Mhm.
was not a thing. All of my friends were like, yeah, we all knew. We just knew you needed time to accept it yourself. And so, like I may have mentioned, I didn't know hate existed
Right.
until I was 34 years old. I had seen it on television. I'd heard stories. One of the most powerful things that my parents said is they said, David, as you're getting to the age where you might go to bars, with your
Hmm.
friends, you're going to come across people that if you're there on Christmas Day, that maybe the buffet that the bar has set up is the only place this person has to go eat because they don't have a family. And if you make
Hmm.
friends that are not accepted by their family, they will have a gift under our tree and they will have a seat at our table. And
Oh,
they were true with that.
that's
We had,
beautiful.
yeah, yeah. So again, even though I knew ugly was out there, it was never in my bubble.
So you didn't experience that in your community, moving through your community. That's wonderful.
Yeah, I mean,
And
I will say,
you were
like,
in
I was
Tennessee, right?
correct. Hmm.
Yeah.
And I will say, I was a server bartender for, many years through college. And of course, if someone's steak came out wrong and they just needed something to say, it'd be, oh, the gay guy or the F slur
Right.
messed up my steak. But if I was a woman, I would have been
Right.
a B word,
Mm.
they were just need something. So it was never anything threatening.
All right. That's great. And so did you go to college? What was life like for you during that time?
Yeah, like I mean, everything was great. Like I started, making friends and developing, myself into a gay lifestyle and
Hmm.
dating
Hmm.
and getting involved in my community as much as I could at the time. And so yeah, like it. I have no nightmare stories
That's
until
great.
the big nightmare.
Okay. Yeah. So let's dive into that.
Sure.
Sounds
So
awful.
yeah, yeah, yeah. We can't sugarcoat it.
Mm-mm.
It was, but there's some glimmers and some amazing things that happen after, which we'll also talk about. But so my friends and I, there's this bar that we like to go to. It's called Bull Feathers, and we were regulars there. It was our cheers. We knew
Hmm.
everybody knew us. It was a karaoke bar. I felt famous there. I walked in and I could not carry a tune in a bucket, but people liked it when I got on stage and sang because I would sing like Shania Twain, Man, I Felt Like a Woman. And like the guys would laugh and sing and carry on with me and then buy us the beer and we would cheers, and
Right.
it
Right.
is a straight bar.
Hmm.
But I never felt threatened there. There was a big group of us that went every Thursday night. So one Thursday, I had not left the bed in a couple of days because I was going through a breakup with the guy that I was with for a few years, and
Mm.
I'm one of those that I have to like lay in the bed and cry for a couple of days and watch junk television and eat all the junk food, and I have to do that for a few days, and that's okay.
Right. Right.
But a girlfriend called me and she was like, David, today's my birthday. Like, let's go karaoke. Like, put on some clean clothes, wash your face, brush your teeth. Let's go.
Right.
And so I did.
Hmm.
And we get there, we do our thing, sing all that, and I get up from the table to go to the restroom, and surveillance cameras show that a guy stopped me and spoke with me, and it looked like a pleasant conversation. I actually even gave him a business card.
Hmm.
And then I went to the restroom alone. I came back, walked right past him, went and joined my friends. We paid our tab, finished our drink, and three of us that came together left together.
Hmm.
And then surveillance shows that 3 minutes later, he left the facility. And there's a lot of speculation that happens from here because all of that was caught on camera. So we were able to see all of that. But the two people that I was with, they said that they saw me get in my car and I left the parking lot before they did and that I was alone.
Hmm.
We're thinking that, with him having my business card, my information, that he followed me home or got a ride to my house or a ride that followed me somehow.
Mm.
He gave us a couple of different answers on that. We don't know which one is actually the truth.
Hmm.
Um, so he shows up at my apartment and knocks on my door. And when I open the door, he says that he had me knocked out in the first hit, that he is trained military, his hands are a weapon.
Wow.
Yeah. And so from there, he comes into my home and spends an estimated 2 hours sexually assaulting me
Oh my
and
God.
beating me until he thought he had killed me.
Oh my goodness.
So he takes my phone and calls the mother of his children and confesses to murder. She begs him to turn himself in, and he steals my car, my cash, and my credit cards. And that's where we have a little bit of misunderstanding.
Wow.
Like, we can't really figure out, like, because if he drove there, why is he stealing my car?
Right. Yeah.
So that's where we're not getting clear answers from him.
Mm-hmm.
And so he goes bar hopping and gets drunk. And when he gets thrown out of that bar, he wrecks my car. Luckily,
Oh
no other
my.
cars were involved. He, went off an embankment. So when cops show up, he is covered in blood, but it's not his blood.
It's not his blood. Oh my
So
God, David. Yeah.
yeah. So he confesses to murder.
Wow. And did he give them your name and location?
So he didn't know me. He knew nothing about me. They did find my ID on him, but I had just recently moved within a few days because, going through that breakup.
Right.
And so luckily when my car was impounded and they started searching it, they found the lease to my new apartment. So it took them 18 hours to find me.
Oh my
They did
goodness.
go to the address on my ID, and my friends still lived there, but they could not tell them that there was an investigation. And my friend never would imagine, obviously, anything like this, or that a cop would be looking for me,
Right.
because
Yeah.
David doesn't get in trouble.
Right.
And your mind doesn't go to that ugly place
No.
of
Right.
murder.
Yes.
And so they just wrote it off, but luckily, Darren, I guess they were looking for stuff in my car and they found my apartment lease, and so they showed up there, and that's where I was. They found me, and I was
Were
still
you
unconscious
still 18 hours later?
Correct.
Oh
Yeah.
my
So that's where
goodness.
a lot of the brain injuries came in, because it was 18 hours of lack of oxygen.
Oh my goodness. And so you're so lucky to be alive and to be sitting in front of us, moving, talking, thinking. That's amazing. So how long and what was your recovery like?
So I battle with this because I was able to get over the black eyes, right? But it's the damage that was done to me internally, emotionally, my mental health.
That's
Was the
significant.
struggle. Right. But so as far as like the outside physical, I had a few scars that I actually spent some time for several years getting them touched up with Botox.
Mm-hmm.
But now I'm kind of proud of them,
Mm-hmm. Right.
The last time I had an appointment to get it done, I was like, no, I kind of like them now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had some nerve damage, so my body just could not lift itself up. Like, I had to be helped to the restroom. I couldn't live by myself anymore. I had to move back into my family's home. I couldn't get in and out of bed. I've never been a big guy, but I got down to 98 pounds.
Oh my goodness.
And I couldn't walk without a walker for the longest time. I had such frustration when I had to learn how to pat myself on the back because I was able to walk to the mailbox.
Wow.
I've done that for 30 years at that point, and now I have to pat myself on the back for that. It was, I struggled with that. I couldn't really focus on the mental health side of things. And so that was the decline in my mental health was almost winning because I was having to face this guy in court. I was having to breathe the same air as this man that was telling my family what I looked like taking my last breath because he thought he had killed me.
Oh my God.
And so he was talking about how I flopped like a fish out of water, when my lips were turning blue. And we're all having to hear this. And this person knew what inside my home looked like, what I looked like without my clothes on and without permission
right.
to see me that way. And so it definitely played such a big devastation to the David that we all used to know.
I can't even imagine having to go through that and then face him in court.
Yeah.
That must have been harrowing, and it must have been nauseating.
Yeah, and I couldn't pick him out of a lineup. I didn't know his name. Even when they came to me, I knew his name because he goes by his middle name, and so that's the name that I was told. But then, like when one of the attorneys came to me and they were using his first name, I was like, I don't even know who that is. I was like, is this the second person? They're like, no, it's the guy. Like I didn't even realize it was the same guy.
I see, yeah.
So everything was just so foreign to me. And I was like, what am I not able to comprehend and grasp? Like, what am I not hearing? Is there, like, I created a conspiracy, like, what are they trying to keep from me? Which there was a little bit of one, but, it was, I just couldn't retain any information.
Wow. And did you lose the memory of being in the bar and meeting him?
Yeah. Even when I watched the surveillance cameras, I had no memory of it.
Oh my goodness.
I remembered a couple of things earlier that day, but I don't know if it's actually a true memory or if it's just been told to me so many times of this is what happened and this is what you did and you text me here or whatever. But I don't know if it's a real memory or if it was just provided to me, and I think it's a memory. I had thought that I had gotten up and went to the shower, and I had this, what I thought was a memory of falling in the shower and hitting my head. But the detective said my clothes were not wet, my shower wasn't wet. I had clothes on, that like pants were pulled down, things like that. But my clothes were actually on, and I was in the kitchen floor, and you could see. I mean, the crime. My apartment looked like. I mean, it obviously was a crime scene, but you could see like claw marks and fingerprints down the walls where he was like dragging me from room to room, and then you could see where he had done certain things in the bed, and then where he took me back to other rooms to do damage in just all these different places. And so the detective is saying there's absolutely no way I got myself into the shower. That but so I don't know if I just dreamt that while I was out, So there's not much that I remember.
This guy sounds like a psychopath.
Yeah.
Did they ever connect him to any other crimes? It's hard to believe that this was just a one-time deal for him. This sounds like a person who could be a serial killer.
Yeah. So they did not connect him to anything. He was in the military for a while. He was recently discharged for drugs, and granted, it was marijuana. And so, I mean, I know that that's not. I personally don't like marijuana, but I don't think it's that bad.
Right. Right.
And so he was discharged for that and had been sent home, and that's why he and his I don't think it was his wife. I think they were just boyfriend and girlfriend and shared a child. But that's why he was out of the house, is because she was mad because you lost your job, you're staying in the military, we have no money coming in.
Right.
And she, kicked him out, and that's why he was there.
Wow. Wow.
So the only thing that he had on his record was just marijuana charges.
Yeah. So how long did the trial take?
So it took about a year, and
Wow.
he stayed in jail during that time. And then he was sentenced to 10 years. And
Only 10 years.
correct.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Because, of course, like what was so uh, wild for me, I guess, is, of course, they bring down the charges. They give you some kind of plea bargain. And so it was such a rude awakening of, when you look at people's charges,
Right.
that's not really what they did. It's a lot worse than that, in so many cases.
Right.
And so during that year of trial, he was in court, or I'm sorry, he was in jail, and then it was sentenced to 10 years. And then 4 months later, it was my birthday, and my friends and family wanted to, get together, and
Right.
I did not. I was skinny. I was ugly. I didn't feel good about myself. I hated everything. But my friends and family wanted it. And so I did it, but I said, my attacker is not invited. And what I meant by that was, his name is not to be mentioned. We are not to talk about this. If we're going to get together and celebrate, and that the fact that I have another birthday with you guys, then let's do that. But he cannot come,
Right. You can't mention him. You can't talk about it. Yeah.
Right. And so I got to where I was almost looking forward to it. And right when I was about to leave my house to go to the event, my phone rang. And it was a female officer calling saying that my attacker was being released. And of course, they're calling to let me know that the restraining order now kicks in. And I was like, you've called the wrong person. You're letting the wrong person go. Like, I was so convincing that she was like, okay, let me call you back in a minute.
Oh my goodness.
So, but she calls me back and she says, no, that he's getting released on good time. And I was like, how does he get released on? I've not had good time. I have yet.
How many years was this?
So he did a total of 14 months.
14 months.
Yeah.
I'm speechless.
Yeah. And get this. He is not a registered sex offender.
He's not.
Nope. He now has 3 children. He lives not too far from me and in school districts. And I'm not saying that I think that he would hurt children. That's not what I'm trying to imply by any means. But I have a friend who I live next to the University of Tennessee, and we, it's a big college stadium. And I have a friend who made a drunken mistake and went behind the bleachers to pee. No one's seen anything other than someone saw what he was doing, and he was arrested. And he is a registered sex offender because he peed in public. And this person who sexually assaulted me, who admitted to it, was found guilty, is not a registered sex offender. So that's why I thought it was important to say, it's not that I'm trying to insinuate that he would do anything to children, but
still, it's
not held against him.
Right. Right. And how much of this, all of this jaw-dropping leniency, do you think happened because of you being a gay man in Tennessee?
So remember a few seconds ago when I said there was a bit of a conspiracy?
Uh-huh.
This is it. So,
okay.
So thank you for asking. So this was during the time when everyone was voting on gay marriage.
Okay.
And anything gay related, all judges wanted swept under the rug because of votes, and especially in a red state like I'm in, sometimes we surprise you, but, judges were nervous. Are they, these these senates, all these people. There was a news article released when the attack first happened, and it pretty much reads that gay man goes to straight bar, takes straight man home for sex, and gets beat up.
Oh.
So blame the victim.
God forbid we have any public sympathy for a gay man who's brutally attacked in his own home.
Right.
By a stranger. God forbid, because that might sway the public's opinion to be more sympathetic to the gay community. And when we want to keep them from getting married.
Right.
Yeah.
So as the story progressed, so did the news reporting. Well, one of the news reporters, who was actually part of the LGBTQIA community, contacted me, and she said, David, we just got a call from the judge, and we have to remove every story and coverage of your case except for the very first article, which is the one blaming me. So one thing that happened during...
Wait a minute. How can the judge order the media to do something like that? I mean, it's not a court order, is it? Was it a court order?
I honestly don't know. I was just so... During this time, keep in mind that my brain is still healing.
Of course.
I'm malnourished.
Yes.
Yes. I was in a place where I was held together with duct tape and a prayer.
Right.
Yeah. And so when something like that came my way, I shut it out. I could not deal with it. And so I wasn't even going to try to fight it. I will say, because of that first article that was blaming me, there was a lot of death threats that came in, to the point that cops had to be at every entrance of my family's home where I was staying, because the death threats were so harmful, like so bad. Luckily, those went away pretty quickly. But, this new fear developed. If I'm out in public, people know my face. They know this narrative about me.
Right.
And there was this one lady, bless her heart. She saw me at Walmart, and she came running up and immediately hugged me. But here's a stranger.
Right. Hugging you. Yes. That must have been very triggering for you.
Yeah. And I hate it, because she was just wanting to show love. She was like, I'm a mom, and I've been following your story. But of course, I'm like, anxiety through the roof.
Yes. Right.
And so, knowing that so many people know this narrative, this creative story about me, and that they recognize me, but I don't know what they know. I don't know what they think. I don't know if it's this guy's friend that wants to, quote unquote, finish the job, like a lot of these said. So all of these fears and emotions were happening, and a part of me was not surprised that the media got that phone call.
Wow. Was it the love of your family that kept you in that area, kept you from just leaving the area?
Yeah. As I was getting better, one of the things that I realized for myself is I want to be part of the change. I have nephews. I have a couple of godchildren. Mm-hmm. And I remember, with that story that I told you about, with my family said that you're going to come across people that don't have a family, and our door is open to them.
Right.
I kept thinking about them. What if this would have happened to one of them?
Yes. And
they would have laid there and died? My family, my support team would not let me. Mm-hmm. And so I have not wanted to leave this area, because I have to be part of the change. Because what I have realized that I think is pretty cool is, people would say all the time, this is just making you stronger. It's making you stronger. And my response to that is, I was already strong. Mm-hmm. This didn't make me stronger. I was already strong. And that's how I got to where I am. Now, of course, there's more strength that comes with it. and more power with knowledge but I wasn't some little weakling before this.
Right.
And that was just real empowering for me.
Right. Wounds become scars, and scars become your armor, right?
Yeah.
The story that your body tells the world. Yeah. You have this podcast now, The Process of Healing, along with a therapist who's a friend of yours. Tell us what you do in your podcast to try to help others heal. Because I know that you've been through therapy yourself. Are you still in therapy?
Yes,
yeah.
ma'am.
Yeah.
I think if the best therapists need a therapist.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So tell us, a little bit about what you do to try to make a difference in other people's lives to help them grab onto their own strength.
Yeah, I would love. So this is my favorite part. So thank you. I was a part. Well, I will say one of the good things that the state of Tennessee did for me is they immediately set me up with a sexual assault therapist.
Good.
And they let me pick, because I've said, you cannot lock me in a room with a straight man.
No,
and
absolutely not.
Beard.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I developed this fear for a beard, because if there was something I did remember, it was that the feel of a beard.
Wow, that must be tough in Tennessee. There are a lot of beards there, aren't there?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. And I'm trying to grow one. This some people call it a 5 o'clock shadow. It's about a 5-month shadow, but part of like my healing and recovery is I will have a beard,
Yes. Good for you.
But yeah. So I just, this facility, Helen Ross McNabb, they worked really well with me and set me up with this amazing woman that I saw for a while. And then because of my story and the progress I was making, they wanted to start a sexual assault group therapy session for men. And they asked me to be a part of it. And 8 years later, we still do it every Wednesday night, and it is so great. And there's about 8 of us, and we're from all walks of life. We're straight, we're gay, we're Black, we're white, and and that was such a weird, cool, interesting thing to realize is if there's one thing in this world that does not discriminate, it's trauma.
That's the truth. And so many people, we hear so much about women as victims, but people don't talk much about the men who are victims. And there are plenty of men who are victims out there. From little boys to grown men, as you were. And we don't give that the attention that it deserves. We sort of expect men to just kind of suck it up and be a man and get over it, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And so having this, I know this is a long way around to answer your question. I'm so sorry, but
no, please.
Having this with these men and having this realization, like you had just mentioned, we can't fix anything until we get to the core. And I mean this respectfully, but I think that this snowball effect of trauma is because we don't get to the core, and the core happens to be with men because they're not allowed to deal with it. And so they turn to drugs and alcohol, and sometimes they become their abuser.
Yes.
And so I was so excited about this group therapy that we were doing, and even these straight men that were like, I was the only gay person they had a connection with, and now they're my brother, but then COVID happened and everything shut down.
Right.
And I was going out of my mind. I needed my therapy.
Yes.
And so I thought, okay, I'm going to buy the equipment. I'm going to start a podcast. I will do 2 episodes. I'll get bored with it. I'll have my mom put a like on Facebook, and then I'll shove it in the closet and be done, And I was completely wrong. I
Right.
started the show out, and it was called Surviving Abuse.
Mhm.
I wanted the show to evolve as I evolved,
Yes.
and I didn't know that it was going to. I mean, I'm not by any means a big podcaster. I'm well on my way, but I'm not trying to make it be more than what it is. But people
Right.
just started pouring into my emails and wanting to connect with me, and it was just so cool. Like and again, it was all kinds of kinds, and so I just kept it going. And you had asked, what I do, and what I do is I care and I believe them.
Mhm.
They don't have to
Mhm.
convince me of anything.
Right.
I can just sit there, or if they want me to talk, Lord knows you're learning. I have a lot to say.
Mhm. Mhm.
So, I want it to be two friends sitting on the couch, having a cup of coffee, tea,
Right.
wine, beer, whatever your vice is, and just conversing. I don't go in with a script.
Right.
We just share stories, and we share a journey, and we're just building a community.
And it's a beautiful community. It's
Yeah, it's really cool.
yeah. The fact that you can come out of all of this with such love in your heart for other people, and to be able to sit in that room with all of those men after what
Yeah,
you've been through and help them in their journey is really that really says a lot for your inner strength. And in spite of, it sounds to me like, because, I'm a psychiatrist, it's kind of a occupational hazard. I always go kind of back to the roots, right? And even though there was a rocky start to your life, um, you were taken in and embraced by people who truly loved you, and then you continued to be surrounded by people who truly loved you and supported you. And thank God for that, because if it had been a different story and you'd ended up in the foster care system, and God knows what could have happened there, because we all know those stories can be awful. Um, you may not have made it through any of this.
I agree. I know I've heard so many stories of people, turning to drugs and alcohol, or even becoming that promiscuous person that they were just accused of being.
Right.
And I do want to say with that too, had I propositioned this man,
Hmm.
it would have been okay, because it would have been two consensual adults.
Right. Yeah.
And that's the part that just really made me mad.
Uh-huh.
Is when people were saying that, oh well, a gay guy took a straight man home for sex. If I did take this man home for sex, it's because he agreed to it, and it would have been
Hmm.
two consensual adults.
Hmm. Right.
And so the fact that they're trying to victim blame me even with that is a whole other thing.
Yeah,
But
because that still wouldn't have given him permission to do what
right,
he did. He thought he murdered you. In fact, it sounds like that was his goal.
yeah.
Yeah.
And have you heard of the gay panic defense?
Yes, because there's a trans panic defense as well.
Yeah, yeah,
Do
yeah.
you want
And
to do you
Matthew
want to
Shepard's
explain to
case.
the listeners, or as I say, the listener? Would you like to explain to the listener what gay panic is, and how that plays into the legal system?
Yeah. So, and this is still active in some states, but the gay panic defense is if a straight person attacks a gay person, and
Hmm.
they say it's because they were uncomfortable because of this person's sexual orientation, and that's why they did it, it is a defense. It was used in Matthew Shepard's case, which is
Right.
a very public, famous case
Very tragic.
of of them, saying, well, he propositioned me and I got nervous and flipped out.
Which is just so. Is that a defense? It's not. It's not a legal defense in every state, though. That's
Correct.
correct,
Yeah.
right? So is that a legal defense in Tennessee?
It is still used in Tennessee. I did some research on it. I can't remember. It's states are slowly coming away from it. And even though they may not call it the gay defense, like with my case, they didn't use those words, but the fact that they were trying to say, well, David propositioned this guy and that's why he did what he did, until finally my attacker said in court, he said, no, David never propositioned me. He looked like he had a lot of money, and which, thank you, but I don't. And
you just know how to dress well. You have good taste.
Right. Thanks.
you're a gay man. Of course you do.
Right. But yeah, that I look like I had money and I look like an easy target.
Wow.
But he did say when the cops were arresting him that he knew that if he told them that he did it because I propositioned him, that they would go easier on him. And he was right. They took him through McDonald's drive-thru and got him some food. They stopped and got him a pack of cigarettes and let him smoke, all while I was thought to be dead. And so even my doctor that was part of the trial was saying that these things happening is also what contributed to my memory loss and the brain damage that I had, which luckily I was able to it was short-lived, but every hour of lack of oxygen causes that problem. And so
they're dilly-dallying around and going to McDonald's with him contributed to more brain damage for you.
Right. And there was even on the discoveries with the police camera, one of the cops said, well, to me, it sounds like two boys wasn't getting along and fought it out in the yard and one of them lost.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So there was a bit of a like gay panic defense and all that. But, part of, again, me staying here is I want to change all that.
Yes.
One of the most traumatizing things that I think was actually more traumatizing than the actual event, because I don't remember that, but when they had to do a rape test on me, that is collecting evidence.
Right.
And the nurse didn't shut the door, and my friends and family walked in saw everything that was happening, and I remember that.
Oh my God.
And no one was there. There was not a professional there telling me what
like a social worker or a therapist or no one.
And so I was just sexually violated.
Right.
And now someone else is in that same area and I'm coming in and out of consciousness at this point. And so I remember feeling like it was still happening.
Oh, of course you did. Of course you did. And that's what anyone who has to go through that rape kit in the emergency room, it is a re-traumatization. I mean, even going subsequently for just a wellness exam can be traumatizing after something like that, much less right after the event, having to go through that for the evidence. And of course, the evidence is crucial. It has to be gathered, but emergency rooms, hospitals need to have someone on staff available for these victims to help them through it.
I would have done anything for someone to have just come in there and held my hand and said, you know what, this is ugly and it's awful, but I'm with you.
Yes.
I have you.
Yes.
And I didn't have that.
No.
And so what I'm trying to work with some people, some local people and educate myself on and build resources with is I want there to be a team of people that, can be. I want there to be the gay man, the straight man, the black woman, the white woman, because I want the victim to be able to say, I'm comfortable with this type of person, that I'm a black woman and I want another black woman here with me. And that is the only type of person I'm going to be comfortable with. And we have that person for them to come hold her hand. That's all they need. And I want to be a part of that.
And we have so far to go to get there, because as things are right now in the healthcare system, you're lucky if you can get a nurse to come into the room, at once every 4 hours. I mean, honest to God, in these emergency rooms, people can lay on gurneys and go without attention for literally hours. My own niece nearly died in an emergency room where she had an infection that turned into an abscess that turned into sepsis. And it wasn't until she was going into septic shock that somebody, and her husband was screaming at the top of his lungs, that somebody actually stopped to take her vital signs and then rush her to the intensive care unit.
Yeah.
I mean, so to think that, okay, we're going to go from that kind of situation to having social workers or therapists on hand for rape victims, sexual assault victims, it's a long way to go, David. I don't know how we get there.
I don't either, but I do think, and part of why I'm doing what I'm doing with my podcast is we have to normalize these conversations.
Yes.
And the more that we talk about it and the more that we normalize it, where, so many people are taught to sit down and be pretty. And
Right. We've got to talk about the ugly things that are present.
Yeah.
And we have, because I think the reason, I don't know what you think, well, I'm sure you agree, but I think the reason that we don't talk about these ugly things is because of society's tendency to victim blame. So the victims carry around shame that does not belong to them.
Yeah. Yeah. If I hear someone say, when they hear that a college student was assaulted and they said, well, what was she wearing? I don't give
a
GD.
No.
I don't care.
No.
It does not matter.
She could be exotic dancing at a club. She does not deserve that. Nobody deserves that.
No.
So I'm so proud of you for what you're doing. I'm so honored to know you. Your strength and your courage is absolutely amazing. I don't know how you do it. I just don't know how I would be scared. I try to put myself in your position, and I think about moving physically through that community. Have you seen this guy again? Do you ever run across him?
Nope. Luckily, I haven't. I do know that when he first got out, I got notification that he was living about 3 miles away from me. I have been told that he's back to where he came from, which was, maybe 20 minutes away.
Mm-hmm.
The restraining order did end this year, so I was a little nervous about that. But I will say, and I could be wrong with this, his mother reached out to me because I had made a comment on Facebook because everything was so public and people were asking questions. I made a comment of, was he taught this in his home that this is okay? Mm-hmm. And against court orders, his mother reached out to me knowing it could jeopardize him and his probation by letting me know that this is not who she raised and that she is so sorry. And that was pretty cool. I don't think that he was sitting down on the couch having a bowl of Fruity Pebbles and thought, you know what, I want to go find a gay guy and kill him. Mm-hmm. I think that I walked into a room and I was everything that he wished he could be. And I don't mean gay or anything like that, but people liked me. People accepted me. I had no shame. I was living in the moment. I was happy.
Right.
And it was everything that he wasn't.
Mm. Yeah. It's hard to imagine what goes through the mind of a person who would do something like that. Yeah. All I can say is something was wrong. From my professional, opinion on that as a psychiatrist, this man didn't just wake up that day that way.
Right.
And I promise you, he didn't wake up the next morning a different person.
Right.
He still is who he was then. So he still poses a risk to the community, which is so awful that he didn't serve more time and just gets to go on and live his life.
I wish we were more rehabilitating.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if the judge would have came to me or my attorneys came to me and said, you know what, he's probably going to only do a year in jail, but during that year, we're going to give 3 therapy sessions a day. We are going to rehabilitate to where he would be somebody someone would want to live next to them, but we don't do that here.
No.
And I want to change that too. There's so many things I want to change, Doctor.
Yeah. Well, you and me both. There are a lot of things we need to change. And right now it feels like we've just, gone backwards so far. So who knows what the future is going to bring in terms of attitudes, societal attitudes and resources available. I feel like all of that is very tenuous at this point, at best.
I agree. And that's why I refuse to shut up.
Good for you, David. Good for you. I hope that everyone watching, my listener will tune in to David's podcast, The Process of Healing, because you're going to learn a lot there. David does the things that probably I should be doing on my podcast, but I do it all day for a living. And what David does is he does it on his podcast. He teaches ways of self-soothing, coping skills. He talks about the process that you go through in healing and some of the different methodologies. Can you talk about a little bit about some of the ways that your therapists have worked with you that have been most helpful for you?
Yeah. And it was all these things that I've heard of, but I thought they were so silly and how could they work? Like when you hear about like grounding techniques, just put your feet in the grass or, breathing. I was like, I've been breathing since day one. Like I'm fine. I know how to breathe, but boy, was I wrong.
Right.
I thought I knew how to breathe.
Right.
And just, I refer to it as, putting things into my toolkit. Right.
Yes.
And there are times I have, my favorite swing outside and I will go like swing on my, porch swing and have my bare feet in the grass. And that grounding does change everything. And my favorite thing that I did was my bathroom was very safe for me. It was small enough that I could see all corners. It was upstairs. No one could get in without a big fight.
Right.
And it was just covered in Post-its and these affirmations of things of reminding me that it's okay to pat myself on the back, that it's okay.
Right.
If it's okay if all I do today is brush my teeth, I freaking just brush my teeth and that is good,
Right.
And it was just really cool. One day I was brushing my teeth and I was looking down in the sink, like spitting everything out. Right. And I was quoting all of these affirmations I had written without even reading them. Mm-hmm. And so it was working. And I still do it. And I actually keep them and I shadow box them because after a while the Post-its get covered in soap and toothpaste and all that.
Right.
But they're staying in time, but they're mine,
Right.
And that helped me. Journaling. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I wake up every morning and it's about to be warm in spring again, where I can do it outside on my brand new porch that I had done right before it got cold. And so I just want to sit on my porch. Yes. But we actually designed some really cool journals that you can find on Amazon.
Oh, nice.
And they were things that just really helped me. And everyone has, some really cool affirmations on it. And so every morning I wake up and I have my coffee and I just write.
Yes. Yeah. And do you do a gratitude journal?
Yeah. And we have one that's called gratitude. We have several.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted it to be that way because I wanted to have a journal for each designated emotion. If I and,
Right.
and there's no right or wrong to it, right? If I woke up and I was just pissed off, fine,
Mm-hmm.
I grab my pissed off journal and I
Right.
vent.
Yes.
And then maybe by lunchtime I'm ready to grab my gratitude journal because I've had some kind of aha moment while I was venting.
Right.
And it's just this. It doesn't have to make sense.
Right.
No
Yeah.
one has to
No,
read it in chronological order because no one should be reading it. It's no one's
it's
business.
just yours.
Yeah. And I love them and I would love for people to check them out.
Do you go back over your journals?
I sometimes I get a wild hair and I do. And so what I did in this season of the process is I went through my journal and I created stories that are based on what I wrote in my journal. And we call that Enjoy the Ride. Because one thing that I learned to do was enjoy the ride. I wanted
Good
to
for you.
enjoy getting healthy again. I wanted to enjoy healing. I didn't want it to be a task. And
Right.
so and when I started doing that, I found this empowerment and this sense of control, which I think is what so many victims, if not every victim, will say that they just wish they had that control back.
Yes.
And so once I realized that I may not have sat myself down in the car on this road, but damn it, I'm the one behind the wheel now.
Yes.
And I can turn on the music, I can roll down the windows, I can drive, and I can enjoy it. Was just a really cool, feeling. Like I'm even getting chills with it now. And so we have this Enjoy the Ride segment where I talk about a journal entry.
I love the metaphor. That's great. That's great. Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, what I do in the morning. I was joking with a friend of mine. I was sailing along, doing great in the morning until the election. And and I would get up in the morning and I'd feed all my animals. I've got a pile of them, and make my coffee and light a candle and do a meditation and write in my gratitude journal, and I still do all of that. But then I get on TikTok and I just get upset. I'm just like, now I'm upset. And so I think I need a pissed off journal. I need to write in my gratitude journal, and then I'll just reach for the pissed off journal and write in that.
It helps. It helps.
Right. And what I do now is I go on TikTok and I make my pissed off TikToks. So.
See? And so I know this is shifting, which I'm sure we're coming to an end, but I am more politically inclined and involved in educating myself more in this election than any other election. And you have just been a saving grace for me because there's so many things that I don't know, or I don't know how to say, or I don't even know where to start on educating myself. And you have just been, I owe so much to you.
Oh,
and
David,
I know
you.
that, of course, I feel like I'm sitting here having, a conversation with a longtime friend because I watch you all day, every day. And one of my favorites is you had made a post and I responded in the comments and I put 3 laughing faces and you said, "What's so funny?" And I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't have my glasses on and I thought I was getting the cry and it was the laugh. And I was like, oh my gosh. So my first interaction with you was saying, hey, I'm deleting this post. I did not mean to do that. I feel like an ass.
I remember that now. I remember that. Oh my gosh.
I'm not responding without my glasses anymore, but you have just been, you're so beautiful.
Aww.
And all the things, and you're just so great. I love your show. I love your platform. I love your TikToks.
Oh,
and
thank you.
Thank you for being a part of my healing journey. You're amazing.
You're welcome. Well, I'm an information and research nerd. So if I see something that makes me wonder about something, I just go and start looking things up because I have to. I'm never gonna speak on something that I can't back up with receipts. So I make sure, I provide that for people. But I guess I'm just a natural activist. I've been an activist since I can remember. My parents were activists. My parents, I grew up I was a little kid when the Vietnam War was going on, and until I was about 16, when it finally ended. And my brother was old enough to be conscripted. His number was coming up, and he had graduated from medical school. He had completed his internship and was going to be starting an internal medicine residency. And I remember being a little kid at the dinner table and listening, like looking back at watching the adults talking, and my brother and my parents worrying about him being sent to Vietnam, to Saigon. Of course, I didn't know. I mean, I'd seen the black and white footage on the news of the Vietnam War, and I imagined my brother carrying a gun, through the jungle. I didn't know that he'd be stationed in Saigon at a hospital because he was a doctor. But I remember my father pounding his fist on the table and saying, you are not going to go to this war. I don't care if I have to sell the farm and move the whole goddamn family to Canada. My son is not going to go there. And I think that's where my activist heart kind of was born. So as I grew up and I noticed social and political causes, I got involved. Nearly got arrested a few times, but we have to speak out. We cannot sit by and just let it roll over us, because it will if we don't speak up. And I think people like you and I, at the end of the day, we have to be able to look in the mirror and say, I did everything I could. Yeah.
100%. And, I used to get so upset because I felt like so much time was stolen from me, because for so many years, I had to learn how to drive a car again. I had to learn how to find equilibrium and balance and all these things again. Wow. And so what little bit that I knew and what advocacy I was doing at the time was gone. Like, I was having to advocate for myself.
Right. You were just trying to survive and get better.
Just try to survive. Right. And so now it's like I used to get so frustrated. I was like, what if I already knew these things? I could be more powerful and maybe be a little bit louder now. But I can't. What I have to remember is I could have completely lost the desire and the fight, or I can find the gasoline that's expensive as heck, but pour it on my flame that I do have, and do what I can now.
Right. Well, I am someone who is very happy that you're doing what you do now. And I'm so happy that I got to meet you on TikTok. I keep telling people when people poo-poo TikTok, I'm like, why? I have met the most interesting, wonderful, amazing people on TikTok. And you are one of them. You are one of the stars. So yeah, love you back. So thank you for being here today, David, and telling us your story. Again, I want to remind everyone to tune into David's podcast called The Process of Healing. And David, I hope that you meet that goal and get that Netflix documentary made about what has happened to you.
Yeah, there's some cool things coming in the future, so we'll be in touch.
Awesome. You gotta keep us posted. Thanks, everyone, for joining us today. We really appreciate you tuning in, and hope that if you like this podcast and what you're hearing here, please hit the like and the subscribe button. Please leave a comment and tune in again. And thank you, Shayna and Brian of Procast Studios, my amazing producers, for making this all happen. So until next time, everyone, take very good care and don't give up.